Good morning, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting to order. If you could please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance and salute to the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Okay, moving on is the next item will be approval of regular meeting agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the regular meeting agenda.
I'll second that.
We have a second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion?
Mr. Chair, there's an item we're going to table. Shall we do that now? What is the new guidance?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I would suggest you address that when you get to that item on the agenda.
So the way I read the memo that we received based on the workshop that you guys went to, we'll never be making changes to the agenda at this meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Seems a little clunky, but all right. In that case, I'm ready to vote.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving on to elected official reports. Sheriff Gomez.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the public. First of all, I'd just like to give you some stats on our civil division. And this would be for the month of July. DVO served domestic violence orders were 18. Notices were 59. Subpoenas 186. Summons 67. Writs 8. Transports outside of Grant County, mileage was 6,693. So total services done were 350. We also had to do one transport to Victorville, California, where transport company it didn't work through, so two of our deputies were actually sent to Victorville to pick up an inmate and transport him to Las Lunas, to Las Luces Southern Prison. Stats for our patrol division. Domestics are still in an increase for the month of, this is a comparison from 6/24/2019 and 7/24/2019 to 6/24/18 and 7/24/18. Our domestics at this time for this month were 12. It actually was a decrease, versus last year of 22. Our larcenies are on the rise. As of now, we have 13 versus last year this time were 8. Criminal damage to property, another increase for the month, were 10 versus 4 of last year. Agency assists have increased. An agency assist would be anywhere assisting New Mexico State Police, Silver City PD, or Tri-City. It would be 13 versus 8. Our traffic complaints have pretty much increased, and traffic-related incidents, traffic complaints, speeding, reckless, careless driving, getting complaints from citizens were 9 versus last year, last year of the month to 4. Our suspicious vehicle calls have also increased from 13 to 8. A lot of these have been to where the public is actually calling, which is great. We have more eyes than just our deputies doing our patrols, and we have many times making arrests because of the citizens calling. So it's been working out great with our citizens of our county. Abandoned 911 calls has decreased from last year to now. We've had 6 so far this year versus 18 the past year. The welfare checks, animals, and civil standbys are in a big increase. Our welfare checks, we've had 55 versus last year 10. The civil standby 11, last year 4, and animal complaints 25, and last year 2 for the month. Fireworks were very, not many people complained this year on the fireworks. We had 19 complaints during the season of the 4th of July versus last year 38. In regards to our crashes, our crashes are pretty high. We continue to, our deputies, we're actually getting our deputies we're doing some more training. Kevin Bruno with New Mexico State Police retired. We're actually setting up a class so our guys will get another, just a block of instructions again, just to refamiliarize and refresh themselves on the crash investigations. And in the future, I know I've said in the past that we will be sending some deputies to reconstruction on crashes, where our office would be able to handle fatalities or great bodily harm calls as well. In regards to Tri-City, calls for service in the Santa Clara area for this month, we've had 19 calls of service, all ranging from domestic violence, traffic stops, frequent patrols, citizen contacts, suspicious vehicles. Bear PD, we've assisted very minimal. Bear PD, they've gone to a 12-hour shift as well with what our office has done, and they're taking care of their own. They're doing really a great job. In Santa Clara, in Hurley, our calls of service there have been only 6 calls. And of course, they're very short, but the calls of service in Hurley have been very minimal. But our guys are in that area as well. We did have a critical incident last week, which the papers have been picking up and stuff like that. In regards to that, or things that are going on, our office and Silver City Police Department still continue to push for training on the special response team. We did have, about 3 weeks ago, we tested for the physical assessments and creating a special response team. We've gotten, it's about a year and a half before we actually get a team in place between us and Silver City PD. I know Chief Adidas has reached out and would like to see some of Bear PD's officers that we did implement a SRT team here, that if we could include some of their guys as well. Under Sheriff Watkins has spoken with Gallup PD. They are clearly accredited and in special response teams, and this is still a year away from now, but we found the team's blessings once we start our training that they would send their instructors, and per diem and motel would be the only charge that they would cover for recharging us for that type of training, which would be about a 40-hour training. So we continue to move forward, and in regards to our employment, we have one deputy that will be starting, I believe, the 6th of August, the 8th of August, excuse me. So that will leave us to 5 deputies left, and we are finishing backgrounds on 4 different certified applicants, and we'll see from there. So hopefully by next month we should have a couple more that are hired. That concludes my report. It's time for questions.
Go ahead, Commissioner Burch.
Sure. Now, that incident in North Hurley is pretty traumatic, but where does the county stand on liabilities for that? Or anytime there's property damage, along with law enforcement?
Well, I would say any call we go to, we stand for liabilities. The severe of any call that we go, it becomes difficult. It's a tough situation that what you're in, but regards to this incident, our deputies were dispatched to a shots fired call. They determined what was going on. They had a victim, they had a suspect. Unfortunately, we were unable to make contact with the suspect at that time. Knowing the information that we had because of weapons involved in the situation and us not having any special response team in our area, which we've done in the past, we'll call New Mexico State Police for their assistance. Once a TAC team does come on scene, the scene is turned over to that, which would be State Police, and we become secondary as scene security. So, in regards to liabilities, I couldn't tell you will we be named on a tort if a tort comes up, probably so. But I mean, there's been issues in the jail where we're also named on it, so I couldn't tell you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Burch.
Sheriff, I have two questions. The first one is on the wellness checks. Can you give us a little bit of an idea of what the demographics of those are?
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Edwards. In regards to welfare checks, they come in any way, shape, or form. Most of them are self-initiated, or if our deputies make contact with someone on the streets. A lot of them come from CYFD. It could be from a case that CYFD has received on a child, and they need law enforcement to go and make sure that the well-being of the child is being taken care of. The house is livable for a child. We get a lot of them where family members from out of state or out of this area can't make contact with a family member, and they're requesting law enforcement to go and see to make sure that they're safe and that they're okay. Some of those calls we've gotten, and unfortunately we've gone to unattended deaths in situations like that. But the majority would be of that type of nature.
So, I didn't get it written down when you said how many there were compared to this year, this month last year. But I noted obviously that there was a tremendous increase. Is the increase in a specific demographic, like are you seeing more unattended deaths or more seniors or more kids?
Most of our welfare checks that do come on are either seniors or children with assistant CYFD and doing a welfare check. And that would be a referral that either the schools or something that CYFD does receive, and it's taken to us. And so we do the welfare checks and then the determination if we need to proceed with it or if things go well.
How difficult would it be for you to report on how many of those were seniors and how many of them were kids and how many of them were other?
With this CAT system we have, I mean, it's a 1992 CAT system, and our input that we get is as close to the best that we can be. Yes, ma'am. But so we're going to this new CAT system hopefully by the end of the year, which are my stats and what I report to the commission would be a lot more clearer or more consistent information. I'll do my best though, and I'll try to get you a breakdown for the next commission meeting on versus the type of welfare checks that we're responding to.
The reason I'm asking is, we're having a pretty substantial community conversation about how we're going to serve seniors in the future. And so I think that data is really important. It's important for us to know how many unattended deaths there are with seniors and, how many welfare checks there are. And at some point, it would be nice to know, if possible, if those welfare checks are coming from, people from out of state or out of the area, because it would be helpful to know how many of these folks are by themselves, essentially. Like I know anecdotally that we have loads of senior women in this county who live by themselves.
Sure.
So I think that data would be important, and I recognize that your system is old and crotchety, but I'd just like you to have it in your mind that that data would be really important for other organizations that are working on issues around kids and seniors.
Yes, ma'am, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Edwards. I'll do my best and I'll get you a breakdown on versus seniors versus juveniles or our youth, and just a whole breakdown on what our welfare checks are for this coming month.
That would be great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Now I have another question. It seemed to me like last month when you reported on the Tri-City stats that you gave us, I have a number stuck in my head. It could be stuck there for, some unknown reason. But it seems to me like you told us last month that your department spent 155 hours on Tri-City business. And this time you reported it in number of calls. It would be, if possible, if I'm not dreaming what I think I heard you say last time, it would be nice to hear that data in hours so that we had an idea of actually how much time you're spending over there assisting the Tri-City departments.
Okay, yeah. And Commissioners, I'll take care of that. My apologies, we hit the wrong button.
Okay.
And we came out by call volume instead of by hours and stuff.
It just gives me a little more perspective on how much effort you're really spending on Tri-City law enforcement.
Okay, and just to follow up on Tri-Cities or anything like that, I did meet with Sheriff Ganaway, and I did receive his MOU between Luna County and Columbus, so I'm kind of reviewing it. I'll get with Manager Webb and see what she thinks about that MOU. Not saying that would happen or anything, but at least we have something in place that, some type of guidelines to, if we were to do something like that.
Great. Well, I just want to say again that I really appreciate the quality of your reporting and your responsiveness. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Gomez, I'd like to return to the North Hurley incident and start by saying I strongly support your suggestion for training so that we have a special response unit here. This incident has made me clearer than ever that we need to do that. But I'd like to encourage you to get different training than whatever the state police TAC team had. Training that involves more patience and more negotiation, because what happened there seemed vastly out of proportion to what was needed to have happen. So that's just a statement about the training that I hope you'll seek out. It was your call, I believe, to bring in state police. Is that right, based on the circumstances of the case?
Yes, sir.
Given what happened afterwards, once they took over the scene and you were on scene security only, would you make the same call again?
You know, first of all, I don't want to bash New Mexico State Police. Our trainings are all from DPS, so all our laws that we go by or our trainings are approved by DPS. And I mean, of course, this was over a 12-hour long stand-up. They had their crisis negotiation team, which we finally have 2 deputies that are actually certified as a crisis negotiation team, crisis intervention. So, in regards to that, I mean, their hire had made that decision. Would I make a decision like that? I probably would. Just regarding what the situations are at the time and what the factor is. Unfortunately, it was a sad situation on always, and for the female losing her home and stuff like that, but on the long run, if the subject would have came out, none of this would have ever happened as well. So, you know, my condolences to Ms. Big for the loss of her family, her son, and the tragic loss of what's going on with her now with that residence. Unfortunately, our job, you have split-second decisions to make really that quick. And if you have some type of incident that's so critical as this, and those decisions have to be made with all the training that you have, your resources that you have, and you make those decisions. And not always are they going to come out the best. You know, you rule the weight system of life, liberty, and what the justice or what the calls are. But at the same time, in this type of situation, you just can't say, you know what, let's just leave and we'll come back another day. I mean, there was a weapon involved, shots were fired. We have to stay on scene and do what we need to do as well.
Certainly not my suggestion that people should have just left and waited for another day. It's my suggestion that there's some space between leaving and demolishing the house that could have produced a better outcome for all involved.
Yes,
But you answered my question, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure. Go ahead, Commissioner.
I was just going to follow up a little bit on what Commissioner Brown said. And I understand that sitting up here on the dais, we have no idea what happened that day, and I totally respect and understand that he makes split-second decisions and that sort of thing. But it is a little mind-boggling to me that we dismantled someone's home. I just think that I want to agree with Commissioner Brown on the fact that we have to figure out a better way to do things like that than to dismantle an 80-year-old woman's home. Now, I see that somewhat separate from the tragic death of her son, because that's a little bit different. But dismantling her home to get at that person, I'm not sure that we can justify. Thank you.
Well, I wasn't going to say anything, but I think I may need to just express my opinion. When I get pulled over by a police officer, which is more often than I should probably, I've learned to put my hands in plain sight, probably on the steering wheel, and this is out of respect for my own life and my own safety, as well as the safety of the officer. They put their lives in danger every day. Their families don't know when they're going to come home. I don't know. You're right. We don't know the situation over there. I don't pretend to know the details, but if there's any lesson to be learned by the average citizen, it is when the police ask you to comply, whether you think you should or not, you should comply, at least for the moment. And of course, this is not discounting 100 other things like mental illness and blah, 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 and go on and on. But I think the lesson for us is comply with what the police ask you to do, or things can get bad. That's all I have to say.
I have one final comment. You know, sir, from what I understand is that was a very deadly situation. You know, and what happened there was horrific. But what I do understand is that there was no loss of life other than to the perpetrator of the crime. So I do want to commend you guys for following your policy, following what you guys have been trained to do. And in those situations, you know, I can imagine, you know, the adrenaline, the severity of everything. Now, I do go along with my fellow commissioners thinking that maybe there would be some other route to accomplish it, but I don't know it. So whenever something happens, I'm thankful you guys are there. So, thank you.
You know, just all commissioners responded, so, you know, I really don't comment sometimes on things like this, because being in law enforcement for almost 24 years myself, there are so many factors that are involved with situations like this. My heart does go out for the family and the destruction of the home, but not being there, you know, there's too many factors. You know, there's residents, their lives are at stake. You know, is there possible mental illnesses? You know, what other areas is it going to affect in the community? What other people is it going to affect? You know, law enforcement is trained. They receive a lot of training, especially the New Mexico State Police. So for me to sit up here and comment on something like that, I'm not. You know, I do. My heart does go out to that family. It does go out to that lady. Probably something she had no idea what was happening, and you know, some tragedy of losing a son, losing part of her home, but not being there, not knowing the complete facts. You know, as a commissioner, and this is my opinion, and it's not for me to comment on it other than just trusting that the people that were trained to do the job did the best they could and did what they had to do. Besides that, Sheriff Lomas, maybe I missed it. How many burglaries did you have during this time period?
We had Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, on burglaries, we had 8 burglaries this year and 5 of last year, and larcenies were 13 versus 8.
You had 8 during this time frame and 5 during last year's time frame?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for the sheriff?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to move on to Treasurer Mr. Mandados. You have a report?
Other than the report that my chief deputy gave last meeting, I don't have anything further to add. I stand for questions if you have any questions. That I thank her for stepping in. I had a scheduled appointment show up a little earlier than expected, so and she gracefully came in and presented our report, so if you have any questions or anything, I'll save my time for...
Yes, 13 minutes. So, any other questions for our treasurer? No, thanks. No report. Okay, Mr. Dudley.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members, audience. Every year, we get evaluated by the State of New Mexico under Property Tax Division. So one of the stipulations, I have to do a report to the county commissioners meeting, and the timing of their evaluating and the budget and everything is quite interesting. But I would just like to start off that I do want to thank my staff for everything they've done in my office, and not only that, I had them attend an IWO course, that's the International Association of Assessing Officers courses, up in Socorro, and they're a whole semester in a week, and then you take a 4-hour exam. We completed our 2019 certification, and it was accepted by the State of New Mexico. I contacted PTD yesterday because whenever you don't hear anything, you get a little bit nervous, so I should just accept it as is. Our yield control formula, I actually sent the certifications over to our county manager and Linda Vasquez on our Grand County certification of 2019, and also our yield control formula. We were waiting on it to get the okay to run our yield control formula, and I'll explain that in a sec. Very much status quo in the assessor's office. We're working on our building permits, sales ratio data, our affidavits, our manufactured homes, agricultural, and all the other functions in the office. Under the mapping department, everything's status quo with the update on the parcel corrections, and right now we're at 33 subdivisions and 19 were offset. The evaluation of property tax division is satisfactory. Property value was certified by the assessor's office during the last year in the week of June. Matter of fact, they came in over 15 days late because of his property tax division is understaffed, and also Department of Finance. Overall, net assessed valuation increased $17.8 million, and that's about 3%. Over the prior years, the gain has seen both residential and non-residential sectors. The assessors' increasing efforts on recording new construction, new business personal property was actually direct impact on our county revenue. Our paying off are increasingly steady since I took office in 2015. For 2019, the gains were further bolstered by strong growth in central assessed properties. That means the utilities, pipelines, railroads. Meanwhile, the 2 successful years, we have lost livestock valuation rates, and it finally pretty much leveled off. Showing small gains and similarly lost across different animal classes. So they actually have lost on the rates for animal or livestock. A result is overpopulated cattle increasing. Livestock values has shown a moderate growth for 2019. Primary estimating indicated the increase of overall values, providing the increase of county operational revenue is nearly $250,000. However, the increased revenue from the valuation is tempered by changes of revenue source such as copper, which has been reported separately. Copper production value went down 11% for the year 2019. The loss of copper will likely offset the gains of our certification on our values. Any questions at this moment on the yield control formula? And once again, I got it over to the county manager and our certifications for the year 2019.
Well, not on the yield control formula, but I sure did not follow what you said about livestock.
Matter of fact, we have overpopulated our livestock, and
What can you explain overpopulated?
well, matter of fact, whenever they render, on livestock, it shows the valuation on the non-residential, but it's personal property. Matter of fact, there has been an increase, but the rate for livestock has decreased. So I guess due to the overpopulation of livestock, and that's cattle, sheep, bulls. So and I'm going to show that on the presentation. This is just to break down exactly what's going on what our certifications are, and that will be on paper. Thank you. Commissioner Brown. Any other questions while I put on the presentation on that? Okay, thank you very much. I do sit on the board of directors for the New Mexico counties, and also sit on the committees of the Native American Policy Committee, and they haven't met at all. However, the Economic Development Infrastructure Policy Committee, they met on July 22nd. I did discuss this on our work session about any revenue, any grants or anything for economic development. I contacted Brian Moore at the and he actually stated the interim committees are starting to meet, and he's usually trying to catch up on a couple, seeing what's going on with those conversations for the smaller and the rural areas for economic development. I will stay abreast on that. I will attend some of those committees, interim committees, and I will actually give a report on that. The board of directors are actually going to be meeting on August 1st, 2nd of 2019. Thursday, August 1st, we're actually going to have an orientation for new board members, code of conduct, training from 4 to 5:15, and also Friday, that's actually going to have the board of directors meeting from 8 till about noon. So that's going to be in Artesia, Carlsbad. So that's what's happening on the first part of August. Any questions so far on the board of directors, economic development, Native Policy Committee by any chance there? Thank you very much. I do have a copy of the annual assessor's evaluation, and I'll send it all over to you guys because it's about a 17-page document, and if I go over that, it's going to take quite a long time. Let me go ahead and give the presentation for the assessor's, the assessor's annual. Thanks a lot, Commissioner Brown, for shaking the shake on the livestock, all right?
So I understand.
I know. Okay. Annual report for the County Commission of July of 2019 under 736-16 NMSA. Actually, pretty much everybody knows who the staff is, from the assessor, chief deputy, chief appraiser. Matter of fact, all the appraisers that we have done a sensational job. However, we are still understaffed in the assessor's office. There's a lady by the name of Desiree Lefsky who left the county to pursue other opportunities on 7/2/7/19. Victoria Marin, who started as a temp in November 2018, was promoted as a regular full-time to replace Desiree. Victoria leaves on temporary position on vacant. So, in other words, that thing had been pretty much frozen for a while, so we were kind of backlogged on our sales. Just do this. 2018, the number of sales from 2017 to 2018, it went from 101.5% on our win ratio to 99.9 in 2018. Our conversion dispersion went from 3% to 7%, and that's a very big plus. Our price-related differential went from 101 to 107, and once again, we were kind of lagged off on the sales due to the fact that we had that position kind of froze. Numbers of residential sales, you're looking at not exactly the normal distribution, but it's a little bit too perfect, and what happens on that is anytime a piece of property gets sold, they actually put it on its market. We actually do a comparison sales approach before we put it on the tax rolls. So in reality, we put this on the tax roll, on the assessment roll, on what exactly the property is actually valued. A lot of times, if you had a piece of property that was a good deal, for example, a property that was worth about $100,000, sold at about $50,000, back in the day, we would just actually do it on leasing and on the property sold. That is not being fair, and that's not being equitable. I actually have comped it out, because this is the only time, due to the 3% cap, that we can put it on whatever the market is. 2018, the number of commercial sales was an increase. The transfer classifications of the activity from 2018 was, and 17 was 35 to 59. So we're actually looking at a change of 68.6%. Affidavits on commercials is 7, and this is the problem that we have, and I've actually talked about this back in the day, and for the last 20 years, we need full disclosure here in the state of New Mexico. A lot of times, they do these affidavits, you know, because they want to do it, but we don't have full disclosure, so in reality, doing a statistical data for land, commercial, is quite difficult, because we literally have to beg, borrow, steal the information. Our work orders is whenever we go out there, do field visits, on any of these sales, we actually had a 16.7% increase on that. Only 14% of all of Grant County is commercial. And I know I've shared this with Commissioner Brown on the non-residential, residential rate, on what is residential and non-residential. While 35% taxable land of the area here in Grant County is commercial. 2018, the numbers of all sales, okay, from 2018 to 2017 is an increase of 1.7%. Commercial was 68.6%, and that is a very good showing. Vacant properties from 241 sales to 217, a decrease of 10%. Unclassified, and that would be just about from residential and non-residential, it's only 80% on that. The total is a negative of 6%. Transfer and the transfers that are not being investigated are 4%, and then I can explain on whether that happens, okay? The numbers of building permits. Here is where you get the net new valuation maintenance compared to net new compared to valuation maintenance. The new permit issued from 2017 was 189. This year, 2018 was 140. That was a negative 26%. And that's one of the big reasons why the assessor's office needs to do these reevaluations, because a lot of people don't do their building permits, so there's a lot of value out there that we can actually put on the assessment rolls. Permit that we closed was 104, now we have closed 194 at 86.5%. Work orders that were executed were actually from 257 to 300. Permits thoroughly enhanced by having grazing and agricultural, livestock, and here we go, ability to support permits in the last 4 months, and that has continued for the year 2019. Manufactured homes. Manufactured homes are quite interesting because we have to get tax releases for anybody that does a name change, that actually moves it or converts it from personal property to real property. So there was an increase of 16.5%. The county was going from 30 to 27, a negative of 10%. Field visits, we actually go look at these manufactured homes once they move them, so we can actually have the proper signage and make sure that all the procedures are done, because they've done a lot of changes whenever they go to the Department of Motor Vehicles. Total manufactured homes is 4,708 compared to 4,749, a loss of 0.9%. Protests. In 2017, we had 162 protests. For 2018, was 138%, 138, a decrease of 14.8%. We only had one for the protest board that probably lasted about 6 hours, and we're expecting probably a couple of them to go to the board this year. By the numbers, here we go, Commissioner Brown. Livestock accounts, we went from 2018 to 534 to 527, a change of 1.3%. Renditions that were mailed were 534. Rendition, once again, we are a south-rendering state here in the state of New Mexico. Actually, you're looking at a 5% decrease on the reporting rate. Here we go on the head count. This is when we went from 26,349 to 27,396. An increase of 3.9%. Accounts for grazing went from 2,823 to 2,769, a decrease of 1.9%. So we're getting more cattle and adjusting to deal with the grazing. Accounting with the new application went from 55 to 33. What that means, a decrease of 40%. Anytime we have a new person rendering for grazing, we actually do a field visit to see if they meet the credentials for them to apply, to pass for the grazing status. Accounts with new leasing went from 63, and we're still working on it at this time. Once again, we do the field visit whenever they apply for the special method evaluation. Personal property, here was, for 2018, went from 798 to 795, a small decrease. However, our valuation increased slightly. And this is another thing, is anytime if they don't report the personal property, the assessor's office has all the right to go in and do an inventory on the personal property, and it is a revenue source. By the numbers of tax examination, parcel created was 44 in 2017, 55 in 2018, increased to 25%. Parcels are combined, and from 84 to 36. Now, if you want your property combined, then you have to come in and actually do a form if they want to combine. What happened there is when we were in the old system, we were actually what they call owner base. Now we're in a parcel base, so every parcel has its own identifier. And a lot of times, it's just fine to go ahead and combine it instead of getting 20, 30 notices of valuations or tax bills, and we do have a procedure to do that. County entry accounts went from 3,309 to 2,978, a decrease on the examination for the numbers on parcels. Here we go, Commissioner Edwards, on the head of household exemption, we went from 121 to 134, and that's anybody that lives over 6 months in their property, they can get $2,000 off your net taxable value of $2,000. Veterans have decreased from 65 to 40, 39 decrease, and that's the one of the $4,000 exemption. The fully disabled that was filed for 2017 to 2018 went from 16 to 8, and a decrease of 50%. The low income freeze, if you're 65 years and older, you come in and apply for 3 years, the valuation actually changes. Not the taxes, but the valuation changes. There was only 39 that applied for 2018. And every year I do visit to the senior centers to discuss this issue about being, 65 years and older with an income of $34,000 or less, and they actually can apply, but it has to be done 3 consecutive years. Once it's done 3 consecutive years, then it stays on the system itself. And they don't have to come in and apply for any more of the valuation fees. There was other legislation coming in about exempting 75 years and older with an income of $15,000 or less, and I don't know if that's going to come up this next legislative session. 2018 is another task that we have. Our general reappraisal statistical analyst, we're working on that at this moment. Emphasizing completing the historical model conversion, the 2 temps that we picked up, and thank you for very much for the workforce, where we actually have a couple of employees where they're sitting in the office, Googling all this information and picking up the value, where we should be probably out there looking, for these parcels to bring in more revenue here in the county. Matter of fact, this is one of the most increases that we had in valuation, and that actually increases revenue here in the county. 1,350 model conversions. What that means is we're at the old system, and we do what they call a historical model. We convert it to a Marshall Swift, and what happens there, you have 2 numbers. You have the one that we have the values on, and what it would actually be if it was on market. That's the conversion. So we actually need another 1,840 more to go. The remaining obstacle for statistical data is our neighborhoods. We actually have to break everything on neighborhoods so we can have our statistics for evaluation. Status models and development, land value data. Right now, our land value data, because we don't have full disclosure, is an issue because we don't have any information because of the affidavits, and not only that, we need to be 100% on full disclosure. Sales data has not been covered on vacant land. So in other words, if you sell a piece of property or have vacant land, you don't have to, because it's considered non-residential. 2018, once again, field work and data entry, we're constantly out there, restructuring long-term reappraisal plan, and that came out in my evaluation that we have to do the establishing our 6-year cycles for canvassing at 100%. These next 3 years, we're going to do as much as possible. We can get people out there so we can bring in value here in the county. We covered 2.6 appraisers dedicated for this task as full-time. This number includes 80% of agricultural appraisal time being applied for the continual revenue of all bases of here in this county. Obstacle, the problem we have, we are understaffed. We're down about 4 appraisers in the assessor's office. In 2018, the number tasked, once again, on the reappraisal plan for 2019 and 2020 initiative is commercial properties, and I'm taking upon that task pretty much on my own, so I can actually go through every appraisal on the commercial properties, and that's 958 parcels and 746 improved. Converting the historical models to 1,750, and everything we reviewed was 445 parcels. Chairman, I'm almost done. Parcel corrections, once again, I gave a breakdown on what's going on, thanks to Tracy. She has her, she's pretty much loaded on what's going on. Kickoff was in January 2019, 5/6/19, phase of 25% complete. All 221 subdivisions surveyed and reviewed, 169 subdivision perimeters have been drawn, so we're actually pretty much on top of that. 12 subdivisions have been completed, and with lot block ordinance. Parcel mapping corrections, okay, once again, we have contracted $113,400, project invoicing is $44,000, balance is $76,000 for 2019 and 2020, phase is located in Grant County. Vendors have not identified it yet, but they're actually planning the phases for 2020 and 2021. Numbers by overall, and if you look at the valuation of $447 million in 2019 compared to $437 million on the residential side, was an increase of 2.8%, not the 3%. Non-residential rate, they're looking at $202 million in 2018, $212 million, an increase of 4.5%. Copper production, we lost from $199 million to $177 million, and a loss of 10.9%. Total value, you're looking at $837 million compared to $838 million, and loss of 0.04%. Historical changes breakdown, and this is actually on the non-residential residential rate from $602 million from $558 million. So if you look at the valuation maintenance, and if I would talk about valuation maintenance compared to net new, I did send a presentation a couple times. We did a couple of presentations last year, and I guess for the new commissioners, what I'll do there to talk about valuation maintenance net new, I'll go ahead and send you those presentations before we make a discussion, because it's a very intense subject. The state assessed property, we went from $57 million. Last year was $54 million, so there was an increase of 6.6%. Net new valuation went from $4 million to $4.9 million, 24% increase. The valuation maintenance was a negative of $2 million to $1.4 million, and that's a decrease of 57.3%. And that's exactly what you really want, is less valuation maintenance, because anything that goes to net new helps out the rate and brings in more revenue. And it changes would be 132% from $1.5 million to $3.5 million. New commissioners, you guys, any questions so far? Okay. Number of copper production, we spoke about that. We're a decrease of 11.8% from Tyrone, and Chino Mines is 8.1% decrease, so a total of 9.9%. And the yield control formula, Commissioner, County Manager, we ended up sending that yesterday once we got the okay from Property Tax Division, and I'll show you exactly what's happening on the revenue side. Any questions by any chance?
now about everything?
Yes, matter of fact, yes.
Okay, so first of all, would you send us that report? Because the one that we received is different.
Did you get the June report or the?
Got last year's.
You got last year's? Okay, that was 17. Okay, now I'm going to send you the report, and I'm also going to send you the evaluation maintenance and also the NAPU evaluation report also to tie in with this one. Okay?
And so when I get that, I'm sure I'll have
Okay.
other specific questions, but I did want to find out some things. The decrease in permits issued, is that because of the fact we have to go through the state now? We don't have a local?
You know what, I'm gonna give you a brief breakdown of what's going on with CID, and that's the Construction Industry Division. Whenever we get the permits, we get them very, very late, they're understaffed, and yes, and that's one of the reasons we have the increase on these permits.
Yeah, okay. You had over 200 accounts that didn't, these are livestock accounts that did not return rendition forms. What happens in that case?
What happens there is we actually put the same amount that was rendered from last year. We don't take them off the books. We actually use last year's values and account for livestock.
All right. You mentioned you're down 4 appraisers, but your slide indicated that 2.6 were needed to effect a 6-year cycle of
Yes.
updates.
And that's actually for the reappraisal portion of it.
Okay. Can you put that slide back up?
Oh, sure.
And he didn't have the down 4 appraisers on the slide. You mean the 2.6 required slide?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, I mean the slide that shows all of it.
Oh, you want the very first slide?
The slide that shows your employees?
Is that the one you want, the
Because
first
I was
one?
looking at this, and it says they have 4 appraisers.
Okay, there's a slide that I'm going to show is that the number of casts, okay? And actually, this is just the reappraisal on the 6-year cycle for canvassing 100%. And that would require 2.6 appraisers, and this is just the reappraisal. This is not the function of the assessor's office itself, okay? So in 6 years, for us to do a complete 100% canvassing, it would take 2.6 appraisers.
Okay, to complete the picture then, if you want to go back to the slide that lists your staff, is that correct,
Absolutely.
Commissioner? Yeah. And what we're looking at isn't the same, is it?
No, I'm looking at 2017.
Yeah, right.
You know, remember in the past that we actually talked about estimating how much value we could bring in if we would have these. I really can't do that because there's just so much out there that once I go out there and pick up this value, then that would be adjusted, it would be under net new evaluation maintenance, and mainly we would actually accept it on net new, and that would actually decrease the rate and bring in more revenue because we'll have more value coming in.
Did you want to ask a question about that? Okay, thanks. And then I had one more on your parcel corrections project. Apparently 12 subdivisions have been completed. There's a bunch more to go. Based on those 12 subdivisions, can you say if the correction is indicating how far off we were, how much, like what kind of percentage needs to be corrected, stuff like that?
You know what, I would like Tracy to give you a breakdown on that, because there's some that are really off, and there's some that are not that off, but Tracy would actually give you a breakdown, and I'll give you a report on that and send it to you and all the commissioners.
Okay, thank you.
Following on to that question, how many more are there to go?
There's quite a lot. I can't really put a number on this right now.
And how long is it taking to get the ones done that are done?
Well, we've done the 12 subdivisions, started in January of 2019. And thanks to the planning department, they've actually been assisting, and it actually kicked off with January of 2019.
I'm done, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions?
What type of differences are you noticing when you say some are way out, some are, is this,
You know, it kind of depends on the area. Like if you go in the mining district, they're well off. They're worse off on the mining district. Around in town, it's really not all that bad. But once we do this once we do this parcel correction, hopefully we can align them. Tracy has actually done that parcel fabric that's really making a big issue, and it's making the job a lot easier. So what I'll do is I'll have her give a small presentation on the parcel corrections on that. All right?
Any other questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board members.
Okay, moving on to the next item on the agenda is public input. During this portion of our meeting, we welcome your suggestions and want to hear your concerns. This is not a question and answer period. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. Any individual who would like to discuss an item in more depth may request to be placed on a future agenda. Request forms are available at the county manager's office. Is anyone for public input? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Colleen Steiner, and I have worked in Silver City Healthcare since 1997. I'm a registered nurse, and I set up a pulmonary clinic in the old Med Square building and have managed it for 22 years. I also worked as a visiting nurse and patient educator for Gila Regional Home Health, and I have a master's degree in nursing. I have a perspective based on years of interacting with the hospital to schedule patient tests, send patients to the ER, and care for patients post-hospitalization. The home health department and the durable medical equipment department that were run by Gila Regional were closed due to partly financial mismanagement. The hospital can also close. After 22 years in Silver City, I am encouraged by the new physicians and specialists being recruited. I am hopeful that the hospital will stay open with more organized registration and authorization procedures and oversight of employees. In the past, you could get by with 30 or 40% waste, but reimbursement has decreased, and providers have to be very accurate in their billing and in their management. For the first time, Gila Regional is being accurate. I am very happy that new physicians and specialists are being recruited by the hospital. Not all patients can afford the gasoline to travel for medical care, much less hotels for their families. If there are not doctors, there are not patients in beds, and there is no money to pay for the pharmacy department, the radiology department, the lab, etc. This sounds obvious. I mean, it's simple, but this is the first administration that has made recruiting physicians a priority. So recent advances, oncology now has a full-time oncologist who lives here. New surgeries are being offered. Billing problems are resolving. Nursing is not using expensive traveling nurses. Retaining of current providers is being worked on. I would urge you to support the current hospital administration as they are doing a stellar job. I've seen probably 15 people come and go in that position. A few ex-employees that have lost their jobs due to substandard performance should be ignored. I hope that the hospital will be here in the future to provide competent testing and emergency surgery and treatment for me, my family, and my patients. I urge you to choose a board member with medical sense and business knowledge and the patient's best interest at heart. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public speaking?
Okay, I was tasked with giving a brief synopsis, a 45-minute synopsis of the Mueller report. I'm sorry. First, I would like to thank the Board of Commissioners, County Commissioners, for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. My name is Norman Ratliff, For those of you who don't know me, and I am a board-certified cardiologist, I came to Silver City 7 years ago and started the cardiology practice here from scratch as the county's first hospital-employed physician. When I started, I didn't even have an office. We borrowed a patient room in the cancer center, and I used a hospital meal tray as a desk. We weren't even in the phone book for the first 3 years, and yet now we're a booming practice and can barely keep up with expanding volume. I came here from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and I have been practicing cardiology for 17 years. I'm board certified in 4 subspecialties of cardiology. I trained at University of Minnesota, Johns Hopkins, and Minneapolis Heart Institute. I came here for several reasons, but most importantly, I wanted a sense of community and the opportunity to make a difference in people's lives and the community that we live in. As you know, rural healthcare and rural hospitals are in crisis in this country. 95 rural hospitals have closed since 2010. The Government Accountability Office reports that more than twice the number of hospitals have closed between 2013 and 2017 than in the previous 5-year period, indicating a worsening trend. Nearly 20% of Americans live in rural areas, as I'm sure you know, and they depend on their hospitals as important and often the only sources of care in their communities. Rural hospitals provide access to care close to home and improve the health and well-being of the patients and the communities they serve. Rural hospitals also serve as economic anchors in their communities. They provide both direct employment opportunities and indirect reinforcement of the local economy through the purchase of goods and services from other private sector entities. If people don't have health care, they don't have health. When health issues go undiagnosed and untreated, then people begin to deteriorate. They're unable to work, unable to buy food, pay for shelter, care for their children. Adults begin to worry about the basics for survival, unable to focus on education and planning for the future. The goals of happiness and stability rapidly start to fade away. When a rural community such as ours loses its hospital, the entire community starts to fall apart. People leave town, businesses relocate or close their doors, and a spiral begins. GRMC is more than just a hospital. It is a vital anchor for this very survivability of Silver City. Taffy Arias inherited a virtual disaster when she arrived here at GRMC two and a half years ago. She, in my opinion, she has done an absolutely remarkable job in getting the hospital back on its feet. I admire her courage and perseverance in making many difficult and sometimes unpopular decisions. She has made the necessary changes in personnel and operations to allow GRMC to not only remain viable, but to expand and to thrive. She is not here to win a popularity contest, but she has managed to maintain her vision and composure despite being attacked in the press with baseless and ignorant accusations. We are extremely fortunate to have a leader of Taffy Arias' ability and vision at GRMC. In addition to Taffy Arias' continued leadership as GRMC's CEO, it is critical that we have a stable and qualified board of directors. Joel Schramm has done an outstanding job during his tenure. He provides valuable financial knowledge and experience and should be reappointed. Dr. Donald Steiner is a superb physician with over 20 years of healthcare experience in diverse settings. He is a long-standing, committed member of our community and would be an excellent choice for the board. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Yes, sir.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Robert Donnelly. Been up here before. I thought that Mr. Turrieta's presentation would be a tough act to follow, but I wasn't counting on Dr. Ratcliffe. I'm basically letting you all know that I have come to realize that finally into my 80th year, I have a chance to begin to play. And that's why I'm wearing shorts today, which was a mistake. But it's good to be able to feel like, passing off the responsibility to the younger generation. And y'all are professionals. I wanted to notice that in the new business, you're going to be approving a lot of volunteers. And that is a vitally important part of any governmental process. And I think Grant County is outstanding in that regard. Other agenda items, Resolution R-1948, application for airport aid. I'm not sure exactly why, but I think it's great because the airport is a really fine asset for those of y'all who still are actually operating in the business world. The Resolution R-1949 for infrastructure. That is great. I mean, infrastructure is what we build this whole thing upon. And it's really, to me, it's comforting to see that Grant County is headed in what I consider to be the correct direction. There may be political stuff and all of the little issues. The other one that I feel I've been fiddling around with you for years is recycling. I mean, when I graduated from high school, I wrote a term paper on solar energy. That was in 1956. So, it's good to see that we're finally made it through the fog of believing that single stream recycling was a reality. We've gotten beyond that. And Grant County and Silver City are going to have to take responsibility for cleaning up, taking up the trash, and imposing the costs upon the retail vendors, whoever brings it here. We can work this out. I lived in Berkeley, California for 15 years. And Berkeley had a recycling center in the 70s. They had a compost system in the 70s. So if there was an occasion, we almost regularly scheduled fire, but the compost got too hot. They had a whole part of the town was an example of what the future will look like. They missed it on some of the things, but it was interesting to be there because it was a time in my life where my career made a tremendous change, and I had to totally change from the East Coast way of life in eastern Pennsylvania to the West Coast way of life, or from the right coast to the left coast, as some people call it. And to spend that time in Berkeley was really interesting because that was my job. Anyway, enough of my story. I want to thank you all for doing what you're doing and for giving me some time off so that I don't have to be responsible for everything. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Yes, ma'am.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. My name is Kathy Arias, and I am the CEO at Gila Regional Medical Center. I just want to, first of all, thank the people that did come today to support the hospital and the decisions that are going to be made today. Although very, very difficult, most very important topics and decisions are difficult ones to make. And I thank you for being in the positions and taking that responsibility of doing so. What I really wanted to just address as a citizen of Grant County and Silver City is the incident that did happen in Hurley, which, as we saw in the newspaper, was quite devastating when you looked at it. In fact, I thought that for some reason we had a hurricane here and it destroyed a piece of property somewhere where I live in this community. But as someone who is perhaps older than many of the people in this room, almost older, I will tell you what I have learned in my life. newspapers are meant to be sold. And what we read in the newspaper and what we see on the front page are sometimes filled with many words, and some are facts, some are what has been told to the reporter. And as you know, there's your truth, my truth, and the real truth. So if I believe everything that I read in the newspaper, I may have missed my opportunity to formulate an educated and well-informed opinion about what the truth may really be. I, for one, who have been involved with the police department, the sheriff's department, as being someone who responds to many different issues as it occurs in the hospital, I can tell you this. I have been extremely impressed with our law enforcement, the decisions they make, the actions they take on a day-to-day basis. I would like to focus on the 1,000,001 things that they do right every single day, the decisions that they have to make, the motions that they have to put in place to make this area, make my area, make your area a safe environment. So although what I saw in the paper was most unfortunate, and what I was moved by the circumstances that have happened as a result of that, I know that if I go through Baird and that sign says 35 miles an hour and I go 40, I will get a ticket. And I know if I go 70 miles through Hurley, I will get a ticket. And that is secure for me because I know I am being held accountable for my actions. So I, for one, want to thank the law enforcement. Although I may not agree with everything that happens, and I do see the misfortune in people's actions, I do want to thank you for what you do in your department. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input?
Good morning. My name is Ramon Terrazas. I'm actually a lieutenant with the New Mexico State Police Uniform Bureau. And while I'm not making a statement on behalf of the department, I'm a lifelong resident of Grant County. I've lived here for 20-some years. My family's here, both my own household and my extended family. The officers that work for the state police, they're from here, their children go to school here, their spouses work in this community. So I can assure you that each and every one of us not only does their job in accordance with preferred practice, but with that in mind, it's our community as well. We're not outsiders coming in. The investigation on the incident and how it occurred and the actions taken is ongoing. It's not being conducted by anybody local. They're agents out of Las Cruces for the Investigations Bureau. And I would really encourage you to withhold judgment until everything is out. We're not releasing anything as a department until the investigation is concluded for a reason. We want to make sure that we have everything available to us to release to the public and it's complete. I can assure you that having worked personally with those officers, several of which actually live here, they are subject matter experts. They train for hundreds of hours to understand what they do and to do what they do safely. Above all, law enforcement, and I think the sheriff can agree with me, is the best outcome is always that everybody's safe, nobody's injured, but that includes the officers and the citizens around whatever call that we're responding to. Sadly, we've seen an uptick in violence. North Hurley, we had a murder suspect in Silver City that we had to call it the same resources for. Day after that, we had a barricaded subject in Deming, and obviously that doesn't necessarily pertain to Grant County. My point is, there's an uptick in violence statewide. So, obviously, everybody's entitled to formulate their own opinion, and I would encourage you to do that, but I would also encourage you to wait until all the facts are out before you pass judgment, because at the end of the day, again, each and every officer, to include myself, puts their life on the line. And while we absolutely do everything we can to uphold the highest standards, you know what, not everything we do is perfect, but be assured that our intention is always the best. And I would encourage each and every one of you, and Commissioner Ponce knows me personally, if you have a question, if you have a concern, while I may not be able to give you anything that still under investigation, I would be more than glad to engage in the conversation. Again, we're part of the community, and our goal is always to reach the best outcome, to include the suspects. And although, and I appreciate your support, it doesn't look great. I wasn't there myself, but I know enough information to understand what's being reported isn't necessarily the most accurate. Because again, it's not based on any information that's been released by the department. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public input? Thank you. Hold the timer out. Moving on to next item on the agenda, it's approval of minutes.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the minutes of the July 9th special meeting, the July 9th work session, and the July 11th regular meeting.
We have a second by Commissioner Edwards. Discussion.
On the July 9th special meeting minutes, maybe we can separate the motions. It looks like we have approved the Pledge of Allegiance. Something's going on there. I encourage you to open the minutes. Pledge of Allegiance and salute the state flag, 5 ayes. I assume that there's just a couple lines that got left out, and perhaps we should wait for the corrected version to approve. That was the meeting at which there was very little action. We narrowed the field, I believe, if I recall this meeting, from 11 candidates to 7 candidates, and that's not indicated on the minutes.
I withdraw my motion.
Motion withdrawn.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the minutes of July 9 work session and July 11 regular meeting, and that we await a corrected version of minutes for the July 9 special meeting.
Commissioner Edwards seconds. Seconds motion. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to next item is the financial report.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the expenditure report of July 18, 2019.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to new business. Item F, consideration of shooting range advisory board applicants.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve the applications of Gilbert Helton and Nancy Gordon for one-year terms on the Shooting Range Advisory Board.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Any discussion?
Thank them for their time, as has been done before. I appreciate the volunteers in this community.
Thank you. Any further discussion? So no discussion, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is consideration of Landers Tax Advisory Board applicants.
So we need to table that, correct, since there's no applicant?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, yes, we'll continue to advertise for those positions. And we'll put it back on the agenda when we have vacancies to choose from.
There's 2 positions or 1?
There's just one.
1 position.
Yeah, one for a 2-year term.
So we're gonna look at the expert, she says one.
Okay, so we have a motion to table.
So moved.
Second?
Second by Commissioner Brown. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to item 8 of the agenda, consideration of two CASA advisory board applicants.
Commissioner Edwards, did you want to make a motion on this one since you are our representative to that board? Otherwise, I'd be happy to.
So I missed the work session on
Okay.
Tuesday.
Well, and we didn't discuss it at length, but we did discuss the fact that the gentleman who's reapplying, Mr. Douglas Shelley, has done an excellent job. He indicates he'd be willing to serve again, but if there's another willing candidate, he seems to prefer to step aside. I think we should take him up on that and allow him to join Mr. Donovan in playing a bit more with his retirement. And I would nominate Dr. Bob Garrett to fill his shoes. I think we had 2 excellent applicants, but I think Dr. Garrett's qualifications win out for me.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Brown for Dr. Garrett.
I'll second that motion.
We have a second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to the next item on the agenda is appointment of Feeder Regional Medical Center Board of Trustees.
Mr. Chair, for the sake of discussion, and perhaps it'll be our final choice, I'd like to make a motion. Someone else has stepped up. My motion would be to appoint Cynthia Moreno, James Marshall, and Dr. James Ski to the Board of Trustees. And after a second, I'll explain that selection.
I'll second that.
Commissioner Edwards, second. Discussion. Commissioner.
So I'd like to explain the process we went through, and this was lengthy and, in my mind, quite thorough. I appreciated my fellow commissioners in this process. After narrowing the field to 7, we again heard from those 7. They gave presentations. We individually had conversations with people with whom we had specific questions. And we then sent to our executive assistant each of our rankings so that she could compile them. And those 3 came out on top when all of our rankings were combined. And I will just note that, of course, it's not my top 3. That this process was, I think, designed to reach a consensus position of the entire board. Probably none of us got our top 3. But it's certainly a selection of 3 that I'm happy to appoint to the board, so that's why I'm making the motion. I might add, I actually made some notes that I think we're getting a great combination of experience on the board and of new blood, of healthcare experience, governmental experience, and financial expertise. And in the latter, by the way, I mean Dr. Ski, who has considerable healthcare financial expertise. And I think we're getting a really important focus on the hospital's importance as the cornerstone of community health care here in Grant County. I think all 3 of those candidates emphasized that function of the hospital.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
I just want to say what a thorough and rather difficult process this has been. I'm sure that other commissioners might agree. Getting calls from doctors and members of the community, weighing in a lot of personal and political stuff, sifting that out from qualifications and ideas about how to move the regions forward. I think there was some legitimate conflict, comments from the community about potential conflicts of interest. Should we appoint those, any of the people with conflicts, I guess they'll have to learn when to recuse themselves and from what matters as they serve on the board. I just want to say my last thought is that GRMC, from the period of 2013 to 2018, from the figures we were given, lost $18.3 million. And that's an average of $3 million plus a year for 6 years in a row. I talked to the CFO, Richard Stokes, the other day, and he mentioned the word turnaround. I'm not qualified to say if Gila Regional is or is not in a financial turnaround. I do know that they're not losing $3 million a year now. I can't say that the financial plan that we were presented has materialized, but they're treading water. And Richard also mentioned that this financial turnaround is very fragile. If Gila Regional is in a turnaround, and it seems like they've bottomed out and are no longer losing money, which they didn't have much more to lose. That's a fact. We all knew that. That's why we went through the nightmare process last year of considering what our options were with the hospital. If they are in a turnaround, if that turnaround is fragile, which it obviously is very fragile if it is a turnaround, I think taking into consideration what not only Dr. Ratliff but several others have said, and the continued experience of financial experience of Joel Schramm, I think is something we should consider. I also realized the process that we went through. The scoring process that Commissioner Brown just explained. I would prefer, my choice of candidates would be Cynthia Moreno, James Marshall, and Joel Schramm. But we have a motion on the floor, and I guess I'm explaining why I would vote that way is because it's been expressed to me from several on the board, currently on the board, Joel's financial experience is needed to continue. I also think with the other two candidates that that's going to bring great balance to the board as far as being. There's been some concern that you just have a bunch of yes people on the board of trustees. I'm trying to be politically correct here, but the first, Cynthia Moreno and James Marshall won't be yes people, I can guarantee you. They're going to ask a lot of questions of what the current administration is doing. I believe we need a balanced board. This commission is balanced, whether we like it or not. Probably some of us wish we had 4 others just like us who we could just plow forward, but we're a balanced commission. I think that the Board of Trustees needs to be balanced and not overbalanced in any one way. So that's why I'll vote against Mr. Brown's motion. If it fails, I'll make a second motion.
Mr. Chair, I'd sort of like to better Commissioner Billings here that this was not taken lightly. I think we all had a lot of input from professionals in the hospital, from county residents, from personal family, so it wasn't anything that was taken lightly, and I think we all did our due diligence. So the hospital is very integral to the county, and we all realize this. You know, we see Ms. Arias out there, and we know that we have to give her a board that will work in concert with her to bring the stability of the hospital and continue to keep it stable, you know, and maybe keep it from treading water to where it's just a good and viable hospital in our area. You know, while so many other small hospitals fail, maybe there's opportunity to make ours a success. So in saying that, I'm going to go with Commissioner Dillon in saying that, you know, as in any organization, the almighty dollar is really one of the main points that you have to look at. And with Mr. Schramm's experience in that field, I would go with him. So I would really be for the first two, but my third option would be Mr. Schramm. So, thank you.
You know, looking at these names, when we first started out with all the names, I felt comfortable with the applicants and happy with everybody that had applied, all the applicants. You know, we did come up with a process as Board of Commissioners to narrow it down to the 7, and then we came up with a process to try to rank and come up with 3 names. You know, my biggest thing in listening to people, listening to the public, reading the emails, has been is that this is a rural hospital. This is, to me, it's a gem that we have in Grant County, and we need to make it work. My only hope is the decision we make up here is not a light decision, but it's not the decisions we make is not going to keep everyone happy. And I understand that, and we're not up here to make everyone happy because that would be impossible. My hope is that whoever this board puts into the Board of Trustees is that they keep in mind and they try to make this work. They try to communicate, they work together, they communicate with our CEO. There's a lot of knowledge in these names. You know, I'm one of them that really likes Mr. Schramm because of his financial background. You know, and one thing that I did notice from the last chair, which was Mr. Morones, is the reports he would give us. And I would hope that somebody on that board, whoever we appoint, and the existing board members will continue to do that. You know, is this my list that I would have chosen? Probably not, but you know, there are a couple on here that I would have chosen. And, you know, I see, you know, Dr. Steiner, great, Raymond, Coleman, Gil Stamler. These people are good people, Cynthia Moreno, James Marshall, Dr. Ski. These are very good people, but, you know, sometimes we have to listen, and most of the time we should be listening to our constituents, listening to our people. And because the hospital does belong to them. That's something that they use. And, you know, my biggest thing with this discussion here, and I'm going in circles, is that we're not going to keep everybody happy, but, you know, we're going to do the best, and please understand that we have our community and our hospital at heart, and we need to try to make it succeed. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chair, I would just like to say that as far as the financial conversation goes, there's 2 things that I would like to just point out. That 2 of the 3 people who have been nominated were the people that I was informed by Mr. Stokes were people that he would recommend. And I'd also like to point out that between James Marshall and Dr. Ski, we have probably more than somewhere around 50 years of experience with hospital finances. and medical health care finances in terms of James Marshall worked for the hospital for more than 20 years, I know, and Dr. Ski has run a healthcare business for many, many years. I think the clinical and government side of finance is also very important to the hospital, and I think given that, given the level of experience that I think this set of names bring, I'm going to stand by Commissioner Brown's nomination. Or motion, whatever you want to say.
So, any further discussion?
Yeah, just on the lighter side, I'm going to make either my wife's doctor or my doctor unhappy because they both disagreed. And I didn't look at this as, I guess I set it up. So. It's a difficult decision.
And potentially some of our future doctors. I'm a little concerned about that.
And I'm just good. I mean, I'm good with Ms. Moreno and Mr. Marshall because of the experience and Ms. Moreno because of, being new and having that drive and desire to go there. But, I seriously have to look at three because, there's, Dr. Steiner and Stram, that I think would be an asset in that also. So I'm still thinking a little bit on this.
So there's one more potential consideration. I've expressed my feeling that we could override the preference of the Board of Trustees in terms of having two physicians on the board. But if we don't have to override that preference, I think that's a good thing. There's no reason to engender greater conflict. And the current configuration of 3 people allows us to maintain 2 physicians on the board in respect of the board's own bylaws. Again, I do not think that's an absolute. I do not believe we're bound by that. But no reason not to go along with it as long as it's an acceptable combination of trustees.
Further discussion? Okay, so we have a motion on the floor by Commissioner Brown to accept first 3 votes sent in Moreno, James Marshall, and Dr. James Ski. Who seconded? Commissioner Edwards second. Need a second. All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed?
Nay.
Nay. Motion dies. So,
Mr. Chair, I move that we nominate Cynthia Moreno, James Marshall, and Joe Schramm.
I second.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Williams to nominate Cynthia Moreno, James Marshall, Joe Schramm, second by Commissioner Salas. Any discussion?
I guess I would like to know your feelings about that set, since you surprised me with your vote on the last set.
And I'm looking at, one question, and one question that I do have that's holding me back a little bit is a clinic portion for Dr. Ski and how that plays in here. That's the truth as far as what I'm looking at too, and I'm looking at Dr. Steiner also. That would be a great asset. And Joel's been on the board too. That plays a part in part of my decision. Mr. Goldner, I think would be good also for being on that board. We have a lot of good applicants. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to see what's going to work for the hospital, and in my opinion, what works best.
Well, you sort of the swing vote, and since Mr. Schramm is not high on my list, if there's a different third person that you would support, that would be valuable for me to know.
Right.
Dr. Steiner?
I'll probably support Dr. Steiner.
That would be preferable to me. then we maintain 2 physicians.
This is a hard decision. Everybody's looking at me and, hey, I'm just trying to do what the best is for our community and for our hospital.
So I just have to bring up what I think is, I'm not sure if it's a conflict here, but we just heard from a number of commissioners that they were in support of Joel Schramm because of his previous board experience and his financial experience. It doesn't make any sense to me to be considering Dr. Steiner in that light. If what this board is looking for is the financial experience that the hospital is asked about, then I don't see Dr. Steiner, as great as a candidate as he is, as a substitute for Joel Schramm. That doesn't make any sense.
Or for Dr. Ski. I agree.
Or Dr. Ski.
Both of them have considerably more healthcare financial experience.
Right, because they both run independent businesses that are absolutely dependent on the hospital's survival.
Didn't understand your comments, but the question was asked at the end and gave my honest answer. Whether we agree with it or not,
I think
I'm just pointing out that it's
Dr. Steiner has significant financial experience, I think, with his years in his practice. I'm embarrassed to ask this question, but can I ask the question? Is your name Steiner? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Are you Dr. Steiner's wife?
I am.
Okay. That's what I thought. I didn't want to make that assumption. So with what Mrs. Steiner said today, it's obvious that she and he have significant financial experience. Yeah, this is really difficult. I'm going back over the dozens of conversations I've had and heard good information. It's a very difficult decision.
Oh, that is part of it. What's interesting is we hear, what the, public would read emails, and then when you sit up here and it's facing in front of you, you're trying to decipher everything that's been thrown at you, and you look at the pros and cons, and you look at that, and I appreciate the discussion and the comments from the other commissioners.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to chime in just a little bit. For me, that third choice was the most difficult one, okay? Because it's between an MD and then simply a money man. The reason I was thinking the money man is because I think he would have a neutral and objective view of what's going on at the hospital. I don't think it would be skewed by the experience in the medical field. It would just simply be the numbers. Are they working? What's good, what's bad, instead of having a preference because of his own medical experience. So that's why I put Mr. Schramm ahead of an MD.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
when we talk about the money man, we're not just talking about experience dealing with financial matters, right? We're also talking about a member of the Board of Trustees who's going to use that expertise to make sure that the hospital performs its mission as a community service. I witnessed during the administration of Brian Cunningham, board meetings with financial presentations by a couple different CFOs, because they went through several CFOs, and I did not see Mr. Schramm ask tough questions at all. I actually didn't see him ask any questions. I had tons of questions. Now, it may be that he asked those questions in executive session. Since I was not allowed to attend those, I had no idea. But that was during a period when the hospital was losing huge amounts of money, and questions needed to be asked. And it was very frustrating to me to see that they were not being asked. This is one reason why I do not support Mr. Schramm's candidacy. He may well have expertise, but I have not seen him bring it to bear in a positive way. I believe Dr. Ski will ask really tough questions, will hold the administration to a high standard, and has expertise needed to do that.
Well, in educating myself, because I wasn't a part of all that, but it was my understanding that Dr. Ski had been a trustee of the board before.
Yes, he certainly has.
So, in that
But
sense,
not during the Cunningham time when, at least in my experience, not during Cunningham. I'm pretty sure he left before Brian became.
but it was my understanding that those problems occurred even before the Cunningham. So, the only thing I was trying to do is provide a balance. And from and the knowledge that I had, where I made my, what's tempered my decision is the input that I've had from the public, from other members of the board itself, and from the public. Like I'm sure you guys have had lots of emails, lots of people, lobbying for their choice. So that's the only reason I say, with Ms. Moreno, I really wanted some new blood in there, and because we're tied to the nursing. Okay, so I think that's a vital component of everything. Is it a little scary that, we're appointing or thinking of appointing people that have been on the board before when a debacle occurred? It is. To me, it is. And with what I know, and again, I have limited knowledge, it is a little daunting.
So in that respect, there are 3 members of this list of 7 candidates that have served on the board before, and that's Dr. Ski, Dr. Steiner, and Judge Schramm.
Yeah, and in fairness to Dr. Ski, I received a call from Don White, who was chairman of the board way back in the day when Dr. Ski served with him. They were flush with cash then, but that was at the time when all the hospitals were flush with cash. He did say that Dr. Ski was an excellent money manager. So I don't think there was problems when Dr. Ski was on the board. My memory of, to Mr. Brown's point about Mr. Schramm being a supporter of the Cunningham administration, I think he was on there. I think he saw with many of us the problems and the direction that was headed. He's been a supporter of the new administration, the new CEO, and back to my point about balance, I don't think Ms. Moreno and Mr. Marshall are necessarily. I think we need to really balance the board. And I'm ready to vote whenever you want.
So you're saying you don't think Dr. Ski provides that balance with
I'm
Cynthia and James?
I'm a little bit concerned about the potential conflicts with the clinics and a couple of other things with Dr. Ski. He's a very knowledgeable man, very smart man. I could go. Honestly, I could just about go either way. It's very difficult.
In that case, you would reconsider your opposition to the process we chose, because the gap between number 3 and number 4 is significant. And that sort of reflects the combined wisdom of this commission.
And if the intent of the commission was, or if the intent of the process was to look at that combined wisdom, that's something to consider.
I think I'll vote in favor of Mr. Schramm for the purpose of balance, and I hope I'm making the right decision.
There is a motion on. Oh, there is a motion and a second for Moreno, Marshall, and Schramm.
And you see, that's, part of my other concern is the clinic. I believe that Dr. Ski is very, very intelligent, has his background. Just one of the questions that I've had in this process is a clinic piece of it too. Any further discussion? Okay, so the motion was to appoint Cynthia Moreno James Marshall and Joel Tramp by Commissioner Billings, second by Commissioner Salas. We have discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Nay.
Motion carries. So, Mr. Moreno, Mr. Marshall, and Mr. Tramp will be appointed to the Board of Trustees. Moving on to the next item is consideration of inventory deletions and transfers. So, refresh my memory on this, these are going to auction, right?
You have two going to auction and one is a transfer to the airport.
One's a transfer to the airport. So,
Mr. Chair, I move that, we approve.
I'll second that.
second by Commissioner Billings, any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Aye, motion carries. Moving on to the next item is agreements. Consideration of amendment number,
No, item K.
item K, I'm sorry.
Now, would we, need to, so in light of the memo that went out, we don't need this at this point, and we may never need it. Do we table until we need it, or, okay. So table indefinitely until, okay. Mr. Chair, I make a motion that we, table item K, indefinitely until we are called upon to, reconsider this issue.
I'll second that.
Do you have a second by Commissioner Billings, any discussion? The only thing I have to say is if this does come up, we really need to, this is a very program, it's foundation for our county, and we really need to hopefully support this, stating that, any further discussion?
Did Mary Beth come up and say?
Yes, she came around, she did a great job in her presentation, and the information she did give us, so I appreciate that. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of tabling this item?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Agreement, under agreements, now consideration of amendment 1 to agreement 819-12. And this is a consideration of amendment number 1 to agreement 819-12, professional services agreement by and between County of Grant 7505, Griffin and Associates.
Mr. Chair, I move we approve agreement A1912.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Can you refresh my memory as what the scope here was? For service.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, this is to increase the original agreement with 7505 in the amount of $15,000 to manage and administer the New Mexico Cooperative Tourism Grant.
To manage the what?
The New Mexico Tourism Cooperative Marketing Grant.
And I'm sorry, I'm going to have to apologize here for not being here on a Tuesday. And what is the New Mexico Cooperative Agreement? Remind me. Sorry.
It's monies that come out of the tourism department to various lodgers tax boards to do tourism-related marketing somehow it ties to New Mexico True. I'm not exactly sure
I
how
was
it
gonna say,
works.
is it connected
It's
to
somehow
New Mexico
connected.
True?
It's not, it doesn't like fund New Mexico True, but it's somehow tied into the same program. I can't explain all the details, but, Sunny 505 is doing all of our marketing, for the county now, and they are willing and able to effectively manage this grant instead of the board, and the board's in favor. It was actually their recommendation that we allow Sunny 505 to administer and manage this grant on our behalf.
Okay, so just to clarify, this was instigated by the Lodgers, the grant was instigated by the Lodgers Tax Board. It was originally for $15,000. We have an increase in funds, and it's coordinated, so they're not going to be off doing something that's completely unrelated to New Mexico True. It's going to all be, theoretically, it's all going to be connected to what's already happening. We're not like striking out on our own on some crazy tangent. Okay, I'll second.
Okay, so who made the motion? Commissioner Billings made the motion, second by Commissioner Edwards. Any discussion?
Question though, this is 15,000, that's not gonna come out of our general fund, it's part of the grant.
Correct. It is a $15,000 grant that we would increase the original grant amount that is funded by Lodgers Tax.
So we've gotten an additional $15,000 in grant funds
Yes.
that we want to award to this company to keep going.
Yes.
Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to resolution, consideration of resolution R-19-48. So this resolution is having to do with the runway, right? Repair to the runway.
No, sir, this is for the taxiway. This is designed to rehabilitate the taxiway.
And it is a grant from the FAA, correct?
And then this is from the New Mexico Department of Transportation Aviation Division. But when it comes to, this will be treated like all of our other projects, and we will combine FAA funding. Rebecca explained this on Tuesday. It's about a $2 million project. So this is our portion for the design will be $2,500. Then this is all going to wrap into our 5-year plan, and many of the projects have been pushed up 3 years. We will be looking at a future match of $50,000, which we can be fully reimbursed in the following federal fiscal year. So we would have to make that cash match, but in return for approximately $50,000 to $55,000, we're getting a $2 million project.
And we'll get the $50,000 to $55,000 back.
Yes, in the following federal fiscal year.
So it's a wash for us.
So it'd be like 2021, right?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I lost where we were at. Has anybody made a motion?
Yeah, I was gonna ask the same question.
I'll make a motion that we approve R-19-48.
Second.
We have a second by Commissioner Billings. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to item N, consideration of resolution R-19-49, a resolution adopting an infrastructure capital improvement plan for Gwinnett County.
Mr. Chair, I recommend we approve our 1949.
Mr. Chair, I recommend you table this item. We're extremely preliminary in our discussion of the ICIP. It was emphasized a number of times on Tuesday that we got a lot of work to do still, and we have until September 1 to approve it. It's way premature.
Okay, my question is, I'll withdraw my motion, and then my question is, has anyone weighed in with Misha on this? Are you waiting for more information?
I haven't, because I just got back in town last night.
No. Okay.
I'm gonna go with Commissioner Brown. I think we should have some more discussion, and, so I would like to, probably put that on our next agenda, so that we can have a more detailed discussion.
All right, also agree with Commissioner Brown. I think we all need to look at this a little more closely and give the other commissioners time to look at this. So, but we have a motion, right? So, okay. So Commissioner Brown has a motion to table, correct?
Yes.
So we have a motion by Commissioner Brown to table resolution R19-49. I'll second that motion. Any discussion?
Yes, I have one question. Commissioner, and maybe this is an offline conversation, but I don't see the spinning project on here anywhere. Am I missing it? It's just not on here.
The what, sorry?
Which would be what, Commissioner?
The housing.
Permanent supportive housing.
Supportive housing. That organization has a bunch of different things lined up to do permanent supportive housing, and they're trying to get on the ICIP list, and I've been helping them with that process, so. But
Could you remind us what STEM stands for? I knew what it was.
Supporting persons in need.
Supporting persons in need.
That's exactly why I think we have to have more discussion.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
And there was a land issue, right? We couldn't get it on here if they didn't have the land issue figured out or something like that?
I think this is a side conversation that we should have outside.
All right, very good. Side conversation it is.
Okay, any further discussion? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I would just like to clarify, we will have to have this approved by the last meeting in August. It's due in Santa Fe by September 1, so we would have to take action. And just a reminder, this can be amended, but we do have to have it submitted to Santa Fe for their approval. But it can be amended in the future if you change your mind about your priorities.
And we're talking by September 1st, you said? By
It needs to be approved by the last meeting in August.
last meeting in August? Because this needs to go up by September, right?
Right. So what should we establish an idea or have a discussion on how we can facilitate this? I went in yesterday and talked to Mr. Large and in some detail. Was it yesterday or the day before? Anyhow, I guess it was on Tuesday. In preparation for this. Would you prefer to have a discussion with the other commissioners, or what should we do?
I'm happy to go visit with Misha on this.
I think we all need to go visit with them.
Okay.
I think he's been asking us to do that for 3 months maybe. We're getting there.
Any further discussion?
Do we have to say when we're tabling it to? Or not? No.
I did ask to have it put on our next board.
Well, I think we'll have it as a discussion item. Every board meeting,
for sure.
Yeah,
except the special one.
okay. Thank you.
Any further discussion? So, we have a motion to table. All those in favor? Aye. Motion carries. So going into bids and request for proposal on the RFP IMO, award reject RFP 19-6 attorney and legal services.
Mr. Chair, I almost want to make a motion to table this. For the one thing is that I'm not really sure of what we're getting and what we're doing. And actually, I maybe wanted to explore, then have some discussion, and maybe that's why we maybe make a motion, get another permanent council. Yeah, and I know we've talked about it again, but
So we have, okay, so let's do this. You have a motion to table it.
yes,
And I'll go ahead and second that motion. And do we have any discussion? Okay, Commissioner Sonic.
before, I would want to award something, I would really feel a lot more comfortable getting to know what we're awarding. I don't, seems a little backwards for us to give somebody a contract and say yes, and then go into negotiations for it. I'd be much more comfortable knowing where we had. And I know Commissioner Billings did some homework, and he called some, I think it was Lordsburg, and they said they were very happy with that firm. But maybe I think that I would also like to consider, contract counsel versus in-house counsel. The pros and cons of that, and just discuss that amongst ourselves and see where we go with that. I see the advantages of both, but I also see the cons, because sometimes it was very, it was convenient to be able to walk into somebody's office and ask that question. It was convenient to have somebody maybe redirect us when we were going down the wrong path. So that's what I'm saying. And I know that in today's world, even long distance participation is available. I don't know, I just would like to explore it a little bit more.
The reason, just to let you know, the reason I second the motion is because I'm not totally convinced doing a contract attorney. I know there's pros and cons, and I've heard my fellow commissioners on this, but, I would also like to explore, or possibly explore, having inside legal representation also. I don't know what's out in Grant County or in New Mexico or outside of New Mexico and what we have, and I know the discussions have been, the money and controlling ourselves is or policing ourselves, whichever one it may be, to, not drive up the cost of a contract attorney. But, how do we do that? I mean, we say, well, the commissioners is, it goes down to how do we look at each other? If Commissioner Brown has a question for an attorney, I think he should have that right to contact the attorney. If we're going to start looking at policing each other, then every time a county manager needs to reach out to the attorney, does she have to let us know? The price, I saw some preliminary numbers. It seems like there's more in the budget for counsel, outside counsel, or contract counsel than there was for the inside counsel. So I think that, for me, my opinion is, for me to mull should we go? It has nothing to do with the firm, has nothing to do with their expertise, or they don't have any. I think right now I'm feeling maybe we should explore our avenues as bringing in bringing in somebody to replace Abby, like she was here inside.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Salas is correct. I did call Commissioner Joy Moore from Hidalgo County. Interesting that I chose him rather than I have probably a closer associate on that commission, but I thought I could get a less biased answer from Mr. Moore. So I asked him about, I was concerned about some of the concerns we had about do we have access, and he said the commission has just had unlimited access to this firm. The Hidalgo County contracts with this firm. When I first realized that I wanted to go with a contract attorney is when I would get out answers from our in-house attorney that just didn't seem suitable or accurate to me time after time after time, and I began contacting other counties' attorneys asking questions. Sometimes I got from them, we don't represent you, you have counsel. And sometimes I got an answer. Sometimes I would contact other commissioners, ask them to ask an attorney a question. I found out that these firms have more than one attorney. They have their various areas of expertise, and they don't have to do research every time. They don't have to guess. this isn't their first rodeo, they've done this over and over again. I don't know that the whole law firm, the whole Martinez law firm is that way, but Mr. Mora gave excellent reviews, said they worked well for him. I was really impressed with another firm that I was hoping would answer our RFP. They were only willing to go 6 months at a time. I don't know anything about Old Martinez other than I've heard that they, from other sources, I think Hidalgo's not the only county they work for. Well, I know that. And I think usually I think having a specialized, I'm being repetitive now, but I think having someone who specializes and can just give you an answer without doing research in it, and it's a correct answer, is good. It's a 1-year commitment. I understand that. I think we'll save a lot of money on outside counsel that we were spending before. We were having to get a lot of outside counsel because we were looking for expertise that, frankly, our in-house counsel didn't have. And I don't want to put anyone on the spot, but I've talked to some people around here besides the commission who used the council, and I think some of the other departments, at least one of the other departments is really important, would agree with me on that.
You know, and I can respect your comments, Commissioner Dillons, but I don't think we've explored what talent we have, whether it be in Grant County or other, to do that, to see that we couldn't come up with someone that is very knowledgeable or in doing that by being an in-house attorney. I mean, what we have is what was presented to us. I think there's a lot of local talent out here in not only Grant County that may be interested, I'm not sure. Maybe in the state of New Mexico, maybe for somewhere else that could give us those answers. So, I mean, I applaud you for doing your research on that and contacting people, but, you know, I have to be honest, I'm not totally convinced that going contract right now, without looking within, you know, reaching out to others. I think that would be possibly be doing a disservice to our commissioner report. So, you know, that's why I agree with tabling it for right now. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I certainly have a discussion as well. Pretty frustrated at what I perceive to be flip-flopping on this commission. We voted to issue an RFP. That was a vote on this exact question that we're now voting again on. We've done this on wildlife services contracting. We did this in effect on the hospital board trustee nomination process. We decided one thing and went against it. We've done this a number of times. It's not a good way to run a county. We made a decision. I think we should stick with it. I'm voting against tabling.
Mr. Chair, one of our big considerations for outside counsel, as we were talking, was the fiscal part of it. And I may have missed it, but I haven't heard what it would cost us. Now, if this is something that would be way more or way less, I haven't heard what that amount would be. And maybe I just missed the email or something, but that was one of our primary considerations. And of course, as Mr. Billings is saying also, one of the big pluses is that outside counsel like that would have people in various areas of expertise. So I will agree with that. But that's why I would just like the discussion. Why don't we have a number figure? So that's what worries me. Is if with outside counsel, we don't have somebody physically sitting here and giving us day-to-day counsel, if it's going to cost us more money.
So my understanding is they would be at our meetings. Is that a misunderstanding? Yeah, they'll be at every meeting, and then they'll be available on the phone. Maybe the manager or Randy even could weigh in on the cost, is there a cost? I think we're gonna actually, there's a good potential we could actually save money because we'll have less outside counsel than before, but I don't know if Manager Webb or Randy would like to weigh in.
Okay, so in the request for proposal that we did solicit, it wasn't made aware to any individual or firm. So individuals were allowed to submit a proposal, and we did have one local candidate, a single individual, give a notice of intent to propose, and come the submission deadline, no proposals were received. So it was open to both individuals and firms. We didn't single it out to just firms. The cost, they were encouraged to give us a cost estimate. Of course, there's always a little asterisk next to the number that it's not a guarantee that that's what they're going to charge, just based off of billable hours that they're charging us. One of them gave us a set range, 85 to 90, for example. The other one gave us hourly rates for their attorneys. So of course, when you're getting into the cost of it, you're not going to know until you're actually using this firm or the individual.
And were all contracts for a year? I heard Mr. Villa say something about there were firms that did 6-month contracts.
We did have a potential proposer. They contacted us separately and requested that we cancel this solicitation and contract with them as a test run, essentially. It was a decision of management that we weren't going to go that route, and we wanted to keep the solicitation as is.
Well, I guess we sort of be rolling the dice, money-wise.
And if I may, I know you guys are trying to entertain a 6-month contract. As we advertise it for a year, if you do decide to award today to the highest points that we allocated for this firm, if we propose a 6-month contract, they may walk away. They have that right.
Mr. Chair, is the manager anything to say? Is that okay?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, just to further explain the decision to not cancel the solicitation to enter into a test run with the firm that requested we do that. At that point in time, we had notices of intent to apply. It was not fair to those firms who had expressed an interest. This entire process was based upon your direction as a board to move forward, and that's why we've done what we've done. We would manage this contract very similar to any other professional services contract, such as an architect or an engineer. Their fees are based upon hourly rates. I think we talked a little bit about this on Tuesday, that we would have to learn to manage that. Is there anything, I think Randy might want to just explain a little bit about the procurement process, and that we need to table this maybe only one time because of the procurement process that we need to stay in alignment.
Right, so that's my recommendation is that you're going to table it. It would obviously have to fall onto the next commission agenda, and at that point I would recommend either awarding it or rejecting it. In the event that you do reject it, at that point you'll give direction whether you want to go this route again and we try it again, or the board gives direction for a different route.
So I wonder if it'd be possible to have the firm come to the presentation, and then if we have particular questions about them. Right now, Commissioner Billings inferred that this firm is available all the time, and it did not seem like it was a cost imperative to call and ask questions. So, you know, if that's going to be one of the major issues that we're going to have. We're going to be calling and asking questions. But if every time we're going to call, it's going to cost $400, you know, then that's certainly something we'll have to consider.
Well, at this point, it is up for a recommendation for award. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're bound at this point. It just allows me to begin contract negotiations with the firm. We have 30 days from the date of award, 30 days from today, if you decide to award it, to have a contract. If we fail to have a contract, then we can either go to the second firm, or we cancel it and we start again.
So during that 30 days, would it be unreasonable to ask them to come?
presented?
I would have to look into that as far as procurement goes, because as far as the competitive procurement process, an evaluation committee was established for it. The committee was responsible for evaluating the proposals, allocating points, and at that point, the committee could have interviewed the firms.
So I have a couple of clarifying questions. Was a commissioner part of that evaluation committee?
No.
And why not?
It's strongly recommended against, just for ethical reasons, because you are the board that would award a contract. So it's very unethical and to have a commissioner review the awards, the proposals, allocate points, and then essentially become a deciding vote whether a contract is awarded.
I don't see an ethics problem with being on that.
Well, so one of the things that I think is, I don't think we get to say whether it's an ethics problem or not. I think the state says whether it's an ethics problem or not. Am I correct in
Yes,
that?
and I did reach out to our affiliate. I asked a number of counties whether they do have commissioners on RFP evaluation committees, and 10 out of 10
Said no.
said no.
The thing that I feel like we're hung up on here is that there is one process to hire an in-house attorney, and that is a process that the board could participate in theoretically, because it's not governed by procurement, correct?
Correct.
And there is another process, which is the contract attorney process, which is governed by state procurement rules, correct?
Right, when you're asking for solicitations for proposals.
And so what I think I hear, and, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but what I think I hear here is that we went down the road of procuring a contract attorney, desiring the input that we would have for an in-house attorney. And those two things don't seem to be meeting. And so we're doing what Mr. Brown calls flip-flopping. And I think he's right, we're definitely flip-flopping on this.
Right, so essentially when we develop the RFP, there is a scope of work that they're essentially going to be tasked with performing for.
So does the commission participate in writing the scope of work?
No.
Then is that allowable?
I'm sure it could be. You could set out the guidelines, but we both, Manager Webb and I, we reviewed the scope of work together and decided that it was essentially almost a job description of what these firms or the individual would have been tasked with doing as far as the county goes, as far as attorney and legal services.
So I think the other issue here is, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think that this particular thing with the county attorney is a unique issue. I don't feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, like I said, I don't feel like this is something that we need to be going over and over and over again for engineers and architects and things like that. But I think the county attorney is something very specific that we have concerns about how it's going to work and, all that kind of stuff. And the fact that we didn't participate in the scope of work conversation, I think, is also a sticking point. But I think there's also issues around, how urgent is it for us to go down, to have this done? How urgent is it for us to have a county attorney? And I think that some of the questions that I have, like around the idea of who gets to call the county attorney and how long and all that. The county attorney, whether it's contract or in-house, also serves the assessor and the treasurer's office, correct? And so, and do they serve the sheriff's department?
Yes.
They serve every department, whether it's planning, whether it's us, they work for the entire county. Very
Okay, but not everybody gets to call, right? Department heads don't get to call the contract attorney, or do they? Because I believe I'm sorry, I'm stumbling around here. When we had a in-house attorney, did a department head have access to that county attorney? Now, I'm assuming that a regular employee that had a legal question would have to go to their department head or to HR in order to access that county attorney. So if we have a contract attorney, then we will have to have some kind of system of managing how much time we're taking up with that county attorney, correct?
I think that would be a decision whether it be management or a board directive as far as procedures, some kind of procedural guidelines for it, if you so desire.
And would we do that procedural guidelines work as part of the negotiation? How would that work?
No, my recommendation is that's going to be totally separate from the contract. At this point, if a contract is in place, we're just contracting with firm A for items X, Y, and Z. Now, as far as county internal process of who gets to call, when they get to call, that could be stipulated by the board separately as an internal process.
So X, Y, and Z, let's just say that X is the access to the attorney. So X. So what you're saying is that in the contract negotiation, we're going to decide or we're going to negotiate either hours or an amount of money for X. That would be part of the negotiation process with the firm, right?
Yes,
so we want
to charge us hourly per attorney.
Right. So it's going to be either we have, I'm sorry, the word is called retainer. That's what I'm looking for, the retainer. So let's say we have a $50,000 retainer that's for unlimited questions, or we have X number of hours, or something like that. We are going to negotiate that as part of the contract.
Correct.
Then we're going to decide internally how that's going to be allocated. As a procedure, and so
if you chose.
Well, we're going to have to allocate it some. We're going to have to choose allocation somehow, right? At some level.
Yeah.
So the sheriff's office gets 50 hours, the sheriff gets 50 hours, treasurer gets 50 hours, something like that. There's going to have to be some process like that in place, right?
I don't know if you want to allocate hours.
Well, I'm just trying to get to an example.
Okay.
We have to have a procedure for how we're going to spend that, either those hours or that money, right? How long is it going to take you guys to come up with that? How much work is going to be involved?
My question is, does there have to be, is it that, are we making this too complicated?
On Tuesday, you have a great excuse because you couldn't make Tuesday's meeting. But we did have this discussion on Tuesday, and I'm very comfortable waiting and seeing how it goes. We may well not need to have such a process. If we're all reasonable human beings, it could work out just fine. What we were told by our county manager was it has worked out just fine in other counties that have contract attorneys. They haven't had to have that kind of a process. If we have to, then I think we'll come up with it.
Sorry.
All right. So I just have one more clarifying question along the way. How long do you anticipate? So we have 30 days to negotiate this contract, right?
Correct.
So in that 30 days of negotiating that contract, can you somehow involve the commissioners in what is negotiated into that contract as long as it fits within the scope of work that was published?
Yes, essentially the scope of work that is in the RFP is going to be incorporated into the contract. We can't go outside of that scope of work. Of course, as far as more technical terms, as far as the term of the contract, we are going to be bound to a year. Of course, like I said on Tuesday to the other commissioners, you can have that the termination clause of 30 days. If you're uncomfortable with the firm or if you decide to go to an in-house employee, an employee attorney, there's always ways to put it language in the contract to get out of it. At this point, I don't know the need for legal services for the county right now. Of course, it is my recommendation that we move forward with it just so we can have something in place.
Question. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, when we award right now, we're just awarding and giving you, the authority to negotiate. But nothing is set in stone until the contract is negotiated and signed.
Correct. Once the contract is negotiated, it will be placed on an agenda for approval.
We're not making a rock solid decision right now.
No, at this point, it's a contract for award to begin contract negotiation.
Okay, then I'm fine.
So the only comment I have is, Commissioner Brown, is I understand your comment about flip-flopping and not the way to run the county, but, I mean, looking at this and listening to this, sometimes it makes for good discussion. And I know what we say at one meeting, and we have a week or two in between meetings, and things come up, constituents come up. And I think that what we do in that time sometimes is we listen to our constituents. Sometimes they change their minds, sometimes they have different advice. Sometimes we as commissioners come up with things that we are being told that we think of. So I understand your comment about flip-flopping and that's not a way to run a county, but I think, to me, my goal sitting up here is making sure that everybody has their discussion, whether we agree with their opinion, don't agree with it. You know, my thing was, I'm not sure we need to go contracting, we need to go in-house. That's my opinion. And I think I should be allowed to give that opinion, just like, you know, we all have, or I try at least to have us all, you know, get this out in the open, and we learn things. Like I learned from Randy, you know, there's certain things that are, so, you know, I respect your what you said, I truly do, and, but, you know, sometimes, you know, and sometimes, you know, motions are gonna be second for sake of discussion, to get a feel of what are we thinking, what are we doing? And I think that's just the privilege that we have up here, and this is the only place that we can discuss certain things without sending a rolling call. And, we might not agree with them, we may agree with them, we may have different ideas, but that's the way I feel about that part. But I thank you for your input.
So I want to follow up on the chair's comments with, I have said, I know that I said this up here a number of times. I find it extremely challenging to make big decisions like this without a lot, what in some cases is a lot of processing, a lot of discussion, that kind of thing. I think what, at some level, sometimes what leads us to flip-flopping is the fact that we maybe are not having enough discussion before we make decisions. And I don't know if there's a cure for that, but I'm just saying that sometimes I do, when I hear a bunch of stuff and we vote on something and I go away and I think about it, I think, wow, I really wish I had considered this, or, you know, I wish we had talked about this. And I think this is a big one. I am uncomfortable with some of the situations in which we have changed our minds, but I do think that sometimes I don't have everything I need to make the decision in the moment. And I think our response, you know, I think that, you know, protocol or whatever says we have to think about it, discuss it, decide, boom, it's done. And I think sometimes that's really appropriate, and maybe sometimes we just need to have the courage to say, wait, I'm not ready to vote on this, and just not vote. And then, if we're outnumbered on that, then I think that's also part of being a commissioner, is to say, well, I didn't have enough time or information to make that decision, but the decision was made, and so we just need to move on. I think we need to find some balance around that somehow.
Mr. Chairman. You know, I've already made a mistake making the decision on being well educated enough. It's cost me, you know, a lot of confidence. And I think if that were to come up again, I think I'd just abstain from voting. But knowing what I know now, because I thought that we were awarding that contract today, knowing what I know now, it will probably give us the information to answer a lot of the questions that we have. So we will then get a contract, and we will be specific to what we're going to get. And it will probably be specific to the charges that are going to be associated with that contract. But
That's correct.
so, in saying that, I think it will clear up many of my questions. So, if I look at that contract, then I can make the decision whether, then we're going to vote on whether we accept the contract, right?
That's correct.
So, with that knowledge, I am going to withdraw my motion.
Yeah, we have to turn to see where we stand now. I'm withdrawing that motion because we have a second, so.
I'm going to withdraw a motion. Second. So who made the motion, Marisa?
So we had Commissioner Salas and then Chairman Johnson.
Okay, so we don't have a motion to approve on the table.
We're at discussion.
I think it's important to acknowledge that if we move forward with contract negotiations, the question you'll be presented with is whether this is a contract we want to enter into or not. And it will not be a question of whether we want to employ a staff attorney or not. Again, it's my feeling we've already decided that question. But if we're not even decided on that question, I guess I would urge you not to instruct Randy and Charlene to enter into contract negotiations. It would almost be bad faith.
Well, I certainly don't see it that way, because I think it'd be inherent upon me to be very well educated as to what exactly we're going to get. Now, I know what we had when Abby was here, in the short time that I was here, so I can make that comparison. And of course, I don't know everything that Abby did, but if I know what a contract attorney will do for us, because every firm, I imagine, is going to be similar but have different points. So the firm here knows that they're going to enter a negotiation for a contract. They know they're not going to get awarded, and it's not being done in bad faith. So I don't think, as far as I'm concerned, I don't think it's an unethical move. I think it's a wise move to know what you're going to get into before you do it.
Well, essentially, when you award the RFP, you are selecting the firm that we will now negotiate the contract.
Yes.
So
But if you don't like that contract, you don't
It
award
is
it.
indeed.
That's correct.
Very clearly.
There's a level of faith in that.
Yeah, and please understand that, we didn't take this lightly either as staff and the evaluation committee. The evaluation committee did their due diligence as far as the reviewing of the proposals and scoring them, and us collectively as a group made this recommendation to the board.
Randy, I just want to make it really clear that I don't think this discussion in any way is about whether you did your job or not.
No.
It really is not. And it isn't, I don't think it's even a discussion about whether the committee or, anybody associated with knew what they were doing, speaking for myself only, I have complete faith that you did operate in good faith. I think that we are, as a body, are unresolved as to what we're doing.
So, Commissioners, on any further discussion, I guess Commissioner Salas withdrew his motion, correct? Do we have any other motions?
I'm concerned that we might go back on the question of whether we're contracting for these services or not. But in the hope that we do not do that, I'll make a motion that we approve the award recommendation of Holt Minor Martinez PC, and that we enter into good faith negotiations with that firm for 1 year of attorney and legal services.
I'll second that motion so that we can further discuss.
Okay, Mr. Chair,
Discussion.
I just want to make it clear that, there will be a vote on that contract. And my vote will be tempered to whether I think it's viable for the county. I want to know what will be provided and at what cost. And if I don't think it's viable for the county, then I would not approve it.
Any further discussion?
There will be a 30-day termination clause. Can you just explain briefly how that will work?
If we can go ahead and include that into the contract, it's going to be similar to any of our other contracts that we have for architects, engineers, any other contracted firm. Of course, there is that clause that we can give notice of 30 days, similar like what we did with the jail management company. We give 30 days of termination.
And we don't have to have cause.
So we also understand that the firm may not
be okay with it.
They may not be okay with it. That's why we negotiate.
So, I think it's important to have that in there, or to at least negotiate, do good faith negotiation in there.
Yeah, and that was my recommendation on Tuesday, is to include that clause in it, just based off of the feedback from the board.
And I would also encourage you to involve the board going forward as much as possible on the county attorney, not in everything you do, but on this issue, on the county attorney issue. Because we have, we clearly have a lot of concerns.
Understood. Any further discussion? Okay, so the motion by Commissioner Brown, second by Commissioner Edwards. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Aye. All those opposed? Motion carries. So now, next item is, going to recess the Grant County Board of Commissioners and convene the Grant County Health Care Claims.
So moved.
Second by Commissioner Billings. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Okay, so it's going to be item P under the County Health Care Claims Board. Consideration of May 2019 health claims in the amount of $2,266.25. And also under item Q, consideration of June 2019 health claims in the amount of $555.64.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve both May and June as presented.
And I second.
Second by Commissioner Salas. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
That is the Grant County Health Care, Adjourn as the Grant County Health Care Claims Board and reconvene as the Grant County Board of Commissioners.
So moved, sir.
Second.
Second, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
So moving on to commissioner reports. Commissioner Salas, do you have any reports?
No, I do have a comment though. I know we're going to be meeting, a special meeting on Monday, right? 2 o'clock?
Yes, sir.
And I know that's for approval of our budget, but I just want to, I want to make sure that we try to include a raise for our employees. And again, I haven't talked to Linda, and unfortunately, I won't be here tomorrow, but I will call her so that she can give us an estimation of what some cost would be if we gave certain increments and raises. Mr. Bill did inform me that part of the strategy was to bring all employees up to midpoint, I think you were telling me. So, but I do want to make sure that I bring that up and saying that I think that we should accommodate, our employees to the extent possible.
Anything else?
That's it.
Commissioner Billings.
Relative to what Commissioner Salas just said, Manager Webb, could you explain what's in the budget relative to employee salary increases.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, based upon discussion at previous meetings, what Linda and I worked on was developing a cost to bring every employee to the midpoint in the current salary and position plan. She has done that. What she has done in the budget is included that in a special reserve fund, dependent upon your action moving forward as to how you choose to handle that. I can't tell you off the top of my head, what that cost was. I don't recall, and I'm not going to say it without being accurate. But she does have that set aside in the budget. However, we were in the process of reviewing our compensation plan just for the market survey purposes. However, what I would like to request prior to making any decision based on any type of raise, whether it's midpoint or a percentage as Commissioner Salas has discussed, is that we complete a complete review of our salary and position plan, including reviewing all job descriptions. And again, we did that the first time, so we would just redo the plan in its entirety, reviewing all positions and also conducting that market analysis to make sure that if we're going to give raises based upon a midpoint or something that we are seeing in line with the market, it will cost us a little bit more to do that. But that is what Linda and I have discussed, and that is she and I's recommendation, is to give us time to finish that process before you make a decision. In short, there's a reserve included in what she will be presenting to you on Monday.
She has that amount? I think I'm meeting with her on tomorrow.
Yes, she has that, and I'm not sure when she'll be prepared to send that out to you. I've seen a very rough draft, a couple things I've got her looking into. But this comes before you on Monday. She wants to have a discussion with you prior if you're available to make, as we explained, preliminary budget, final budget. You have the ability to make any changes that you see fit in the final budget. So that's why it's coming before you again on Monday for approval.
I have a question for you, sorry, Commissioner Thomas. When did you do this comprehensive plan and come up with all, how many years ago?
That was done in 2017 is when it was adopted. We started the process in late 2015, 2016. The majority of the work was done in 2016. It was our consultant's recommendation that we look at that every 2 years. It was approved, I believe, in April of 2017. So it's overdue. But it was time to do that, and I was in contact with the consultant that prepared the document to begin just the compensation, the market analysis portion of that. However, all of the discussion and as Linda and I were reviewing the midpoint, there's a few job descriptions that jumped out to us that have changed, particularly one in the assessor's office, one in the airport, that we had to look at. So if we're going to look at a few, we need to look at all of them again. There could be some other changes that she and I are unaware of. So if we follow the process as laid out and all departments participate in preparing the questionnaire that we send out about, are your job descriptions accurate? What are the changes? Explain the changes. I don't know what that time frame exactly is. It took a lot longer than anticipated last time for various reasons, but if we can streamline the process, I would say 6 to 8 months perhaps, but I would have to have that discussion with the consultant because sometimes it's difficult to obtain data from other counties or other municipalities, which plays a part into your market analysis. You ask for feedback, and not everybody's always willing to provide that information. Sometimes it's a struggle, but I can have that discussion and between now and Monday and have an estimated time frame for you.
I guess my suggestion would be the first thing to do is correct those employees' job descriptions that don't fit them, because that's very essential to anything we do down the road, or I shouldn't say we as a commissioner, but you as we're dealing with personnel matters. I think that would probably be the first thing to do to get online properly. so they can continue doing the jobs that they need to do. Thank you. Commissioner Boone, Mark Starr, go ahead.
I have some clarifying questions. This is not my commissioner report. So, Cheryl, you and I talked about, and you talked about in public, the, examining a similar type of plan that what you're doing with the Sheriff's Department with Oklahoma County, the step plan idea, and reevaluating how we're doing raises and evaluations and, all that sort of stuff. And so is that part of your plan going forward? Does it continue to be part of your plan going forward?
Yes, it does. It's just this would be the first step.
Yeah. So the other thing that I think is really important on this also is, we have had a lot of discussion about whether the county as a whole is efficient, whether we are staffing certain departments appropriately. I think even about whether the departments are composed appropriately, that kind of thing. Will that come into this as well? Because I think we really need to evaluate whether, and I'm not saying that we can do anything about this specifically, but I think we need to evaluate whether we have the right positions within the county, whether the right people are in those positions, whether those positions are in the right departments, that kind of thing. And I realize that what I'm saying is a long-term project. But I just want to make sure that all of these things are on the radar, because we can't I think we have to get away from doing things like COLA raises and things that create the situations that we have in certain departments where, it's the same people doing the same jobs, their salaries are miles apart, and, things like that. So I just want to make sure that as we go down this path, we're doing a thorough job of examining every level of this.
Commissioner, Chairman and Commissioners, that is the intent. It's a very long-term process. And as far as the job descriptions, if it's a union position, I don't have the authority to make those changes without union approval.
But we can recommend
We can make those recommended changes. And a lot of these are identified by department heads that fell through the crack in the last process. And the other one I'm mentioning is the Tracy Burnsett's position in the assessor's office. I believe she does much more mapping duties than she does title examination duties, and that plays a huge part in comparing her salary equitably.
Yeah. Well, and I think that one jumps out to me, but I'm sure that once we dig in there, we'll find more.
Any other questions for the county manager?
Sure. Again, a clarifying question. So, we will have a pot of money that is going to be reserved for any type of adjustments that we see fit, right?
Yes, sir, that's what Linda has proposed as a reserve fund, depending on what we
Okay, so,
decide to do.
but we're also estimating that this is not a quick solution. It's going to take 6 to 8 months. So, one thing I'm wondering is, so an employee X over there is due some type of raise to bring him up to the salary raise that he should be. Is this the possibility of doing it retroactively?
Well, I say yes. That's been done here previously. There is a memo that was generated by DFA, I believe, back in 2008. It gives a little bit of contradictory information whether or not that's allowable or not. Linda and I have reviewed that, and Abby and I had previous discussions about that. I believe it's allowable as long as that work has been performed, and that's how we've always treated that in the past, is allowed that retroactively.
But we're not obligated to that.
Sorry, Commissioner Williams, you want to continue with it? Commissioner report, if we don't have any more questions.
Oh, no, I didn't even know we were on. I think God said that.
Commissioner, or just Commissioner reports.
Pass.
Commissioner Brown?
Yeah, just a brief thing to let you know that in early August, I will be attending Senator Martin Heinrich's 2019 Energy Summit, subtitled Building New Mexico's Clean Energy Future. And there are, I believe, 8 workshops, and each person can only sign up for 2 of them. I've signed up for one on rural electric infrastructure and a second on solar power for the community. Obviously, those mesh with my interests. The whole agenda looks really good to me. I don't know if it's possible to send other members of the staff to some of the other workshops. The unfortunate part is that it's on Monday the 5th and Tuesday the 6th. And so whoever goes, including me, will have to miss the work session on August 6th. But I'm looking forward to it. It seems like it could be some very valuable information.
So I was also interested in attending that, and is it possible to do a combined work session regular meeting in August? To make this huge agenda?
I haven't looked at the work session agenda.
I can't miss another meeting because I'm going to miss both meetings in the second meetings in August. I'm going to miss both the work session and the regular session.
Including okay. That's the ICIP approval meeting.
Anything else on your county commissioner report?
No, nothing else on mine. The question of whether we can combine, I don't know how we take that up during comments.
I mean, I don't see a problem with it. I mean, I wouldn't see a problem with waterboarding one session for water meeting.
It's up to you.
Would that help your staff attend this workshop? Would that be a benefit?
I wanted to attend that as well, so that would help me. Misha is attending another conference that week, so he wouldn't be available to attend. But yeah, I initially got really excited when I saw the agenda and then realized that it fell on work session.
So it would help you and Commissioner Edwards.
Yeah, we move the meetings to the following week. And I'll be a little tight, but we'll be done. Yeah, I don't know, we'll work it out. We'll figure it
Do both on Thursday, perhaps?
out. Yeah, that would probably be better.
Mr. Chair, I forgot one comment I wanted to make.
Yes, sir.
And I'll be brief. You know, we did meet with Heinrich and UDEL, Senator UDEL's people. And what comes out of it is that maybe the importance of having a person that really looks, and for the lack of a better word, at Parks and Recreation, to be able to address all the different parts of this, you know. If we're going to intertalks with the forest, we're intertalks with, you know, the communities within our county, and also to explore different paths of funding. Because they did tell us that there might be funding paths that could be taken that are federal. So I just think that maybe we really need to consider having a person that the job description would incorporate, you know, making all these ties with all the different entities. Because again, I think that, you know, one of our real things for economic development is going to be the use of what we have right now, our forests, our trails, you know, so it might be something that we need to consider having somebody to coordinate on.
So I have a follow-up comment to that, and that would be that I think if we're going to entertain that, we should have a serious conversation with the town of Silver City about splitting that person. Because we, you know, as the town goes, does the county, and as the county goes, does the town, when it comes to outdoor recreation and trails, etc. So it may just be worth having a conversation with the town about how we could share that.
And the mining area. Okay, that's it, sorry.
So,
Mr. Chair, oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Chair, you did not get to make a report today. Sorry.
you know, and this is my report, it has been interesting. here with some of the discussions we've had, and just food for thought. You know, and I know, and I'm not going to mention the name because I don't remember who came up with some of this idea, but something that we probably need to revisit is maybe having something for the commissioners here in the future to try to see what, I don't really want to call it a strategic plan, but coming up with what goals and what direction we want the county to go. And I think it'd be great for us to set a meeting somewhere, and for all of us to think about what direction do we want the county to go, what goals do we want, what expectations do we have, and I think that would at least help us continue doing and serving Grant County. And you know, I would really like to see us look at that and think about that and doing that so we can try to somehow be on the same page. I know we're not always going to agree on things, but at least maybe we can look at certain things and where Grant County's going to head. And I'll take Spain, for example, not being out there. There's certain things that we should probably try to work together on and move forward and see where we go. So food for thought, you know, I'd be open to anything or any comments on anybody that has on that, but I think it's probably be better done sooner than later. And that's all I have.
Mr. Chair. Along those same lines, what I would like to add is that, you know, maybe it is, and maybe it should be called a strategic plan, you know, go along with Commissioner Brown. You know, we talked about solar energy and alternative energy sources, but since we didn't have a visual or anything in front of us, I think, I for one, maybe, you know, it's out of sight, out of mind. And I think some of those things that we need to look at should be looked at all the time. So I was wondering if the possibility of having like some kind of retreat where we publicize it so that everybody knows that we're going to meet and, you know, be talking about these kinds of issues would be possible, even if we do it here in our own stomping grounds.
I think we have been discussing doing that in connection with the updating of the comprehensive plan. So I agree this is something that I've been talking about for a long time, been talking about it with Charlene for a long time. I think we need to do some strategic visioning. I like the idea of doing it in connection with the comprehensive plan because it's a structure for us to go forward in. I'd like to have it, even if we do it with the comprehensive plan, I'd like to have it facilitated, professionally facilitated, so that when we are done with it, the document is something that is usable. And, you know, it wouldn't be, I don't know how many people would show up for it, but it might be nice to have some of that visioning discussion with our constituents.
Sure.
Just my thoughts.
Good, thank you. So,
Mr. Chair, I move that we go into executive session in accordance with NMSA 1978-10-15-1H. Personnel matters regarding county manager and staff pursuant to all those things I just said.
and I will roll call.
Chairman Ponce, Commissioners Brown, Edwards, Billings, and Salas, are you all aware that you will be entering executive session?
Yes.
Thank you.
Do we expect any action? I usually let people know that, but if they should hang out in a...
No need to hang out.